All right, everyone, and welcome to today's session Behind the Adjustment, how appraisers really price the decision. In real estate, pricing is the foundation of everything. And yet, there is so little that we as agents know when it comes to how pricing is determined from an appraiser. We can do all of the due diligence on our end, whether we're talking about getting our listing ready or getting a buyer under contract. We've evaluated the comps, we've made our adjustments, we've given our best recommendations to our clients, and we go under contract and then we wait. That is where everything becomes out of our hands. And there's so little that we know. How does the appraiser pick the comps that it chooses? How far out do they go? How far back do they go? How do they make the adjustments for the big things and the small things, the items that are super unique? And you agree, that is where all of our questions arise. Because when we were preparing for this session, we asked you what questions you had for an appraiser, and we came back with a list of pages. And so that is what this session is. Katie Brown is a certified appraiser in North Carolina. She runs KB Appraisals, and she is here today to talk about all of that, to show you where those adjustments come into play, to answer those burning questions that you have, and to give you a behind the scenes look so that you know how to price things appropriately and how you can guide your clients accordingly. Katie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I love my choice agents, and I'm not just being, well, I am being biased because I work with a lot of you guys, but I'll have agents from other firms say, I'm not happy, where do I go? And I always say choice. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about working for Brian and his team. And that's a rarity in this real estate world. So congrats for being here. Y'all are hands down my top team to work with in the Triangle. And trust me, I work with a zillion gazillion realtors. So glad to have y'all. So we're going to start a little bit about me. I'm a mom of three girls. I have a 20-year-old, a rising senior, or I guess a senior, and then I have my bonus seventh grader. My oldest is a junior at NC State. We live in the Heritage Wake Forest area. I'm a proud NC State grad, and I married a Tennessee Vol. I'm also a member of the North Carolina Professional Appraisers Coalition. I was a member for a while, and then last year I was nominated by a board of our peers, my peers throughout the state of North Carolina, to be on the board, to be a board member for the NC PAC. So it's a very good way for us to get involved and get the name out there on the positivity of appraisals. From Wake County, specifically born in Wendell, and now reside in Wake Forest. Also putting a photo right here. You may recognize this girl. This is Laura Wilt. She actually is the area manager for First American Warranty or First American Warranty, but she works for me after hours. She's my admin. So if you ever reach out to schedule, that's who you're talking with. You're not talking to an AI agent. I actually have a real live person that handles my scheduling and communication, and she's amazing. So she does this truly part-time. She'd probably kill me if she knew I shared her photo, but she does need to get a shout out. I'm also, like you said, a certified appraiser, not licensed. I'm the step up certified by the state of North Carolina. So that, oh, and I can't forget my fur baby. I don't want to call him a baby. I'm going to call him a Velcro dog. He likes me the most, and I'm not real sure why, because he gets the least attention, but that's Jack. That's the token male son and family. So that's about me. Now, let's get to the stuff. These are the services I offer for you guys. I'm going to hit on the first one. It's called market data research. And there's been a change made in that, and I'm going to explain why in the next slide. What that is, it's the comps and closing range market breakdown. I'm going to show you an example of what that is. Then I offer desktop appraisals, which is no site visit. It must have relevant information in the MLS that I can trust and verify. And it's a full use map appraisal that could be used at, for whatever purpose you may need. Then step up is the full appraisal. That includes a full site visit, measurement, floor plan that you can use in your listing. So no need to pay for a separate fee. And it's also a full appraisal that you could use however you want to. You could share it with buyers or sellers or however it may be. The next is my measurement services. I measure like an appraiser would. So I have my laser. I'm walking around this past week in the rain, shooting my laser, getting your outside dimensions, and then the room dimensions are actually measured by me. Room dimensions are where you would lay your furniture. So it's not going to be wall to wall. So it helps your buyers or sellers see where the floor plan will go. I do use the photographer scan, but I only use that to draw a pretty picture. I do not trust it for square footage. That's a topic for another day, but those are the services that I provide. Now, why no more? I used to offer a pricing valuation where you would send in comps and I would give you a range. I like my job and I'd like to keep it. And what I learned I was doing is a violation of USPAP. That's considered a full appraisal. There's standards that need to be done. And because of that, I'm going to discontinue it. But it also took a lot of time, a lot of work. It just wasn't economical for me on the long stand. There was a lot of back and forth, sometimes between the agents, sometimes between the homeowners. This is not what I bargained for a $150 product. And it was also being used for the wrong purpose. It was being shown to homeowners and buyers. And the market analysis that I'm doing, it does give you the comps that would be used on an appraisal. So you may be struggling with what comps to use. And when I do it, this is just a rough example. You'll see I list the comps and I list the key features that you may not notice. And those are going to be the features that I, as an appraiser, may notice. This is not as detailed. You'll see this, but it'll be stuff you would notice in MLS. So if it has an updated kitchen, if it has an updated bath, if it has an unfinished square footage, that's what it's going to be. And it's going to show you the average sales price. I did one for Nancy Grace yesterday, and we did the sales comps, and it was 740 to 780, and she could decipher based on what I told her that she needed to be at the top end of that range. So it's still a very good tool. I just physically cannot put a number on it. And that's so it can't be shared here and here. If you want to call me and you want to chat about it a little bit, we can do that, but it's not going to be put on paper, if that makes sense. So also going back, choice agents always get $20 off the market data research desktop and full appraisal. That's a service I only offer to your agency and to nobody else. That's just a little perk. While you're here, appraisals are stressful and they're misunderstood. We all know that. We're going to break down how appraisers actually think. We're going to find homes that don't fit neat boxes and what is happening in the appraisal world. There's a lot going on that's going to be really thrown in your face in the month of November. And so we're going to hit on that as well. Trust versus verify. Here are two pictures. On the first picture, I walked into a house. I'm going to have to throw Nancy's name under the bus again. And I thought it was a mouse carcass. Looked at it, stared at it from the picture. You may think it's a dead mouse, right? That's kind of dried up and shriveled. It actually was a cat toy. The second one, the home said they had two fireplaces. This is the fireplace in the bathtub. You got to verify your sources. So this is just some of the stuff I see in the field. Luckily, it was not a dead mouse. I asked the cleaners. They said it was a toy. And the second one needed a little bit of updating. So that's why it's always important as appraisers that we verify our sources and not just trust what we see in pictures. Truth about the common adjustments. You hear this all the time. Sellers and agents often assume value works like a receipt. I spent $125,000 on my kitchen. I should get $125,000 back. I know y'all fight that daily, every single day. Appraisers don't work off costs. They work off what the market is actually paying for a feature. And that gap of what it is and what it's worth is where most of the pushback and confusion come from when I'm working with agents, but also when I'm dealing with, I do a lot of private work. So like pre-list, divorce, estate work. And there's always a little bit more in-depth conversation to be had with the not regular person, but non-real estate affiliated person where you have to explain this in more detail. Okay, this is an example of one I just did. This is a recent renovation. It was done here in Raleigh. It was a third floor, and new doesn't always mean full value. So this was a pre-list appraisal I did. He had finished the third floor. He did all this custom cabinetry, built-ins. He put wood molding on the floors. I don't know if you can see in this photo on the left. He's got custom built cases. He spent $250,000 on the renovation. He put a wet bar, and he spent a ton of money on AV equipment. Well, the rule is appraisal. If you can turn it upside down and shake it and it falls out of a plug, or the outbuilding's not connected to the ground and it falls over, it doesn't have value. This is a beautiful media room if you like to watch movies. And this was the battle I had. And the reason I had it was, sorry, does the market really want a theater room? Or would it prefer it to be a bedroom? Or would it prefer it to be a bedroom and a bathroom? There's no bathroom up there. Like I said, the AV equipment holds no value. There was also a similar sale right next door. It had an unfinished attic. The cost to finish that attic to bare bones, to put drywall and carpet, it already had the HVAC and everything in there, was minimal compared to, it was not going to cost $250,000 to finish this account. And it was also already accounted for in my square footage. So this is a good example of how cost does not equal value. Obviously, the homeowner was not real happy with the valuation I came back with, because he literally had spent $250,000 renovating a third floor, and it was only roughly like 900 square feet. New roof or an HVAC. A new roof or HVAC isn't a bonus. So you may have a homeowner go, like, we just put a brand new roof on it and we put a new HVAC. If I'm buying a home, I expect it to have a roof. I expect it to have HVAC. I expect it to have a water heater. If it doesn't, more than likely, you will not get approved for a loan if I go in. So these are expectations the market has. An older or failing system isn't missing a feature, it's a condition issue. So two homes can look totally identical on paper. They could be the exact same kitchen, everything, and they could appraise for differently because this home, the roof is 25 years old and needs replacing, and the HVAC, one HVAC's working, one is not. My favorite is when a homeowner say, well, I've been maintaining it for 20 years. I got a new radiant rod. I don't even know if that's the right word or stuff. You always have to expect a working HVAC and roof. So replacing it before selling it, it protects the value of the home, but it'll rarely add extra value to a home. So that's something important to talk about when you're talking with your clients about, yes, you need to have a good roof and you need to have HVAC, but again, do not expect you're going to get $35,000 added to your property because you have a new roof. Measurement and space verification. Was it measured correctly? So appraisers verify square footage independently, not through MLS, not through photographer scans or tax measurements. Measurements follow the ANSI standards, which I know you've seen, where we talk about 5-foot knee walls. We talk about how thick the wall is. We talk about below grade, above grade. All those things are listed versus actual square footage can differ. So it's important to remember how your home was measured. And appraisers will go in and measure it to appraiser standards. So I have had discrepancies where sellers have had to go back to the table and say, well, you said it was 500 square feet more. That was because when they scanned, they included you had to walk through the garage to go up to the second finished place. So it wasn't connected through a finished living space, which didn't hold the same value as if it was connected. So there are issues. So just even if you do use a photographer scan, please look at it and make sure that, if it's an unfinished attic, it's not being included. If it's a sunroom, that shouldn't be included, that it's not being included as well. Just if you're going to use it, make sure you look at it good, because at the end of the day, an appraiser's will come and verify your space. Basements, they must have proper ceiling height, proper ceiling finishes. They need to have permanent heat. They need to have egress windows to count as finished, and they must flow with the rest of the home. We've all been in basements that you have a beautiful home, and then you go in the basement and it's a 1970s wonderland with the shag carpets, the panel ceilings, the panel walls, and the drop-down ceilings. That value is not going to be the same as the rest of the house. I am seeing in markets, though, when the basement flows like the rest of the house, it's getting about the same amount per square foot as the above grade. It's all dependent on the condition of the basement. So again, that's one of those. What does a basement, what's the percentage? I get that all the time. Is it 40%? Is it 50%? Well, it could be as high as 90%. It just depends on how the market's dictating the basement valuation. Permits clarified. I get this all the time. If an unpermitted space is finished to the same standard as the rest of the home, quality, HVAC, ceiling height, it can still count as living area. Permit status gets noted in the appraisal, but it doesn't automatically exclude the space. So just like an MLS where you have to document, 300 square feet, bonus room, unpermitted. But if I walk into it, I tell people I'm not a home inspector. I'm not going under the house. I'm not crawling in ceilings. I'm not looking in the outlets to see if they work. From the naked eye, if I walk in, I'm like, this looks like the rest of the house. I would never know it was unpermitted. Me as an appraiser is going to give it the same value as unpermitted. And that I called the North Carolina Appraisal Board and asked their opinion, and they said yes. But is there a written rule for appraisers that that's how you do it? No. So just know some appraisers may do it differently. But if it flows like the rest of the house and I don't notice it, why would I give it a different valuation? So that's something to note as well when the appraisal process goes. Flow and layout. Does this space feel like a natural extension of the home or separate add-on? Like we talked about the basement earlier, the 1970s space. Does it feel like the rest of the house? Is it a good value added when finished? If you have I'm going to just do the A-frame garages, and you've got this upstairs in the garage, and they've gone and they've done a chute, that long. Is that really adding a whole lot of value to the home? Can you really call it a two-story house? Just with that, you kind of have to use a little common sense and put yourself as the buyer, and that's what I do as well. And I'm going to give that as much value as a house that didn't. Would I pay more for that versus this one? Other adjustments. These are some big ones we have all the time. Solar panels. As of today, what is it, July something, 2026, solar panels in North Carolina, I have yet to give value, and it's totally market derived. It's just not a common factor. Also, with solar panels, they can void roof warranties. You think about if you need a new roof, you've got to take the solar panel off. Some buyers don't like the way they look. Sometimes they don't work. Are they leased? Are they owned? I appraised a house that was 15 years old. The owner's like, I don't even know if they work anymore. So because of that, we're not in Arizona. We're not one that's solar dependent right now. They don't add value. I have yet to deduct value from them. So that's a positive. I'm not going to take off value, but it's just, again, it's kind of like, it's almost like something you could turn your house upside down and shake, and it would probably fall off. So that's how I look at it too. Pools. Pools in North Carolina do add value. I think we all know that. Now, there are different types of pools. On the one on the left, not maintained, dirty, ugly. No, probably that's going to deduct from the price of the home. It's going to take a lot of work to bring it back. And we all know they're wonderful, but it's such a depreciation asset. There's so much work involved. The one in the middle, yes, that's going to add value. Again, if I spent $150,000 on this pool, am I going to get it back? Likely not. This is one I think is very interesting where it depends on the price point of a home. In a neighborhood that's 300,000 and you put $100,000 pool in, that house is not going to sell for even 375 because of that pool. And so that valuation of that pool may only be 15 or 20,000 just because of the price range of those homes. You look at it, if I have $400,000 to spend on a home, I don't want to be the most expensive house in a neighborhood just because of the pool. So that's how you have to look at it. However, if I'm in a $1.2 million neighborhood and I put this pool in, it may be worth $100,000 in that neighborhood. So it's all market dependent on where you're located. And that's just why there's not a magic notebook that tells you what that pool is worth. You kind of have to decipher what the market is paying. Another one is waterfront. Don't have a lot of lake waterfront here in North Carolina. I've run into ponds. The first one is a retaining pond, and the bottom one isn't actually a pond. I just ran into an appraisal with this, and the homeowner was adamant. I had this beautiful pond. I had this beautiful pond where it was a retaining pond. It was this big. It smelled awful. There were mosquitoes climbing out. To me, that's not a waterfront. He did put one of the little things you ride around in and said you could ride out on there and all that, but it just didn't add value. At the end of the day, I have to find a comp that has a similar um, pond location, and those are few. You can find them, but a retaining pond, that's another one where looks can be deceiving. When I zoom out in the Google map, I'm like, oh, that's not really a pond. That's a retaining pond. So that's kind of how we look at waterfront features. Okay, I mentioned it, your adjustment cheat sheet, what we've all been looking for, and it all depends. So, pool, guest house, workshop, outdoor kitchen, new kitchen, frontage, all that. It all depends. Back in the day, you may still have it in your files, a sheet that told you the valuation of a half bath, a full bath, updated kitchen, square footage, whatever. But that you got to think about it. If I have a $2 million house and $100,000 house, that bath is going to differ between house to house. And
It's
what is
not really helpful.
hello? I'm sorry, and it's not really marketing between the two, if that makes sense. What actually moves the needle in an appraisal? Kitchen and bath, you hear it all the time. It does move the needle. Again, not the full value, but people, I think you use agency all the time. People are willing to pay more for a home that's already been updated versus having to do it themselves. Square footage, to a certain extent, you can't over improve your square footage, but I always like to say a third floor, more than likely it's going to be the same valuation as the second floor, as long as it's not this type of third floor. That above grade square footage really does make a difference. Basic upkeep. That's why you as agents tell them to paint. It's not gray anymore, whatever the new color is for the paint, to paint your house, to put the new carpet in, to clean, have it clean. Those things are important. As an appraiser, when I look at it, I see the home's been maintained and cared for. I'm not saying, oh, the condition of the carpet's horrible, the walls are beat up. Like the house is not. Those are condition adjustments that I make in my appraisal report. So when you put in your MLS that you have new carpet, fresh paint, those do signal to me that this property is where it should be. And if yours doesn't, there's probably going to be a condition adjustment made from the property that doesn't have the new carpet and doesn't have the new paint, because that is a true market reaction to when you walk in the home. And again, maintaining the major systems, we talked about that. You got to have a roof, got to have HVAC. It's got to be working. The newer it is, the better perceived it's going to be by the appraiser versus a home that needs a new roof and a new HVAC.
Katie, I have a quick question.
Yeah, this is a good stopping point because I'm done with adjustments. So before
Okay,
we go
so
on, I was about to say this is a good Q&A section.
so I when you're talking about sunrooms or easy breeze rooms, I know they have to have heat to be considered square footage, but the type of windows, does that matter if it's the vinyl easy breeze windows or do they need to be glass?
It does. So
They
the
need to be
easy,
glass
well, easy breeze heated and cooled with a permanent heated,
heating
would it
source.
have it? Yeah, would it have a permanent heating source and air condition?
Right. So say if I come across someone that has an easy breeze room and it
Yeah.
has the heat, because I told them it has to have permanent heat for it to be considered square footage, but the type of windows, will that matter as well or
It,
no? Because
it, I would say, yeah. I mean, more than likely the finishings on it are going to be similar. Like it's probably going to, the ones I've run across have all had the same exterior walls. So they still have the, like if your home's hardy board, they're going to still have that or vinyl on the outside of the wall connected to the easy room. More than likely it's a sunroom, it's a screen porch. The most of them I see are screen porches that have put the easy breeze windows in. Now, if you've gone back and you've finished the floor and closed it off, so it's a
mm-hmm,
true floor, then
mm-hmm.
it just has to flow. And the easy breeze windows, because they're not exterior windows like the rest of your home, it could not be counted in square footage. So it has to be built like the rest of your home to be counted. So you have to have the drywall, you have to have the glass windows. It's just not the same caliber of finishing as the main house. That's the main thing to look at for sunrooms is again, you walk out there, it flows like the rest of the house, it looks like the rest of the house. You can't say, oh, something's not right here. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
No, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
So, you're welcome. Anything else?
Alex, why don't you go next?
Great. Katie, question, if you can go back to the basement comment you made, where you said, hey, it could be as much as 90%. I guess to the extent that you can dig into that a little more than just it depends, which may be the answer. I find more often than not, this is one of the adjustments I seem to be dealing with fairly regularly. And it might not be a basement, it's also a large third floor bonus room, right? So some of these neighborhoods, the small house that I'm trying to list is 6,000 square feet and has 2 floors only. And all the comps in the neighborhood anyway are they might be 9,000 square feet, right? But they have huge basements and huge movie rooms and huge third floor. But it's in a lot of neighborhoods, right? It might be a 2,500 square foot home, and there's a lot of 4,500 square foot homes in there. So I find myself trying to do adjustments to maybe give 50% of the value of the basement. Or, hey, I know you've got a nice bonus room on the third floor that's 1,000 square feet, but it's not worth much. So do you have any maybe more granular insight into what we should really be looking at there to kind of, give it
Yeah.
a ballpark?
So you nailed it right there. When you get into the 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 square foot house, there's depreciating returns. So there comes a point where that square footage has blown through the roof and it's not going to be, like you said, worth the main living area. So what you really have to do is look at the neighborhood and say, is there one that sold with the basement? Yes. Okay. And then what I do as an appraiser is you have to be analytical and numbers oriented, is I run the numbers and just see what dollar amount that basement is running for. And it can be interesting because it could, in a smaller home, that's finished like the rest, it may be worth more because the square footage is so much smaller. But when you're talking about bigger homes, it just is different. The third floor thing, I mean, as an appraiser, that would always be included in the gross living area. So as far as the third floor goes, that's going to be the same valuation as the main floor up above. So that one's a kind of a no-brainer. So although, because on paper to paper, it's above grade finishes, and when you look at an appraisal report, we're adjusting just for the GLA, the gross living area, and that's what we're adjusting for. So that I would say dollar for dollar is the main living area. I know the issue you're probably running into is finding comparables that maybe have the finished basement and those that don't. I know there seems to be a lot in the Holly Springs Apex area that do have those finished basements. And it's really just what you said. It may end up being, the basements at the smaller price point may be 90%, but then when you get higher price, they may go down just because homes aren't supposed to be that big. I know it's a very vague answer. And again, I wish I had a cheat sheet, but it just kind of depends on the situation of the home and what comparables are available in the market for us to look at.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Nancy. Oh, you lowered your hand. Nancy, did you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Katie. Thanks for throwing me under the bus.
You're welcome.
I have two questions actually. So first of all, what do we say to a seller when they say the tax records say my house is this size? And then my second question is when we crunch the numbers and in the basement example that we talked about recently, and I'm looking more to list this house at like 775, but Zillow is saying 825. How do we combat that with a seller?
Okay, my brain, you asked me two questions, so I'm gonna forget the first one, but I'm gonna do the second one first, and
Go
then you can
ahead.
tell me. Okay. So the Zillow one, I always love. So let's say I ran comps for you and you have my comp list. But we're going back to the market analysis and you pull Zillow and you scroll down and you show the comps that they used. That's how you combat it. Because they now show you the comps they use for it. I see it all the time. Like there was an older home in Raleigh that was 20 years old, but there was a brand new one, same square footage next door, and they compared to that property and it was worth $100,000 more. So that's my favorite tool to use is in Zillow is you go back and you see what comps they're actually using, and then you present to them the comps that actually should be used. That's my little trick. And then the first question was
about the square footage and the tax records. And I know you and I have talked
okay,
about this before, but I think it's valuable to share it with everybody else.
sure. So tax records always round. So they round to the nearest foot. Appraisers round to the nearest decimal. So that's number one. Also, I find it funny in new construction, they're done by assessors. So they may get a floor plan for one and they'll go out and measure, but they're not necessarily going into the home. So there's so many areas that are included. I've seen garages included where they don't cut out the garage in a home. I've seen where they don't they when they're building, they see a screen porch and think that's going to be square footage. There are so many discrepancies in that. And it's probably one of the easiest things as an appraiser to tear apart because it's just one person, a group of people going out and measuring these homes. And if they were able to get in when it was being built, that's one thing. But if you've made improvements since then, you've added square foot. Did you do it legally? Did you not do it legally? That's how I can tell when I'm working with my realtors and I measure. I'm like, and I always check. I'll be like, tax is not showing this square footage in here. Did you know that? Do you want to include it? Do you want to? Because if not, you need to put your disclosure for unpermitted square foot. So it's always important to go back and verify with taxes so you'll know how many times have you had a client say, oh, it's fine, it counts, it's permitted. And I just had one come back. I did an appraisal, a private appraisal 3 months ago. And then she came back and said, well, actually, I don't think we pulled permits on that. But that was a 500 square foot swing in the appraisal process. So it's always important, again, to verify, verify, verify. And tax and Zillow are not king and queen. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Jennifer.
Hey, I was just curious what your opinion is on a house that, has a two-car garage, but then they've added an additional detached two-car garage that has a bathroom in it. How would you give value to that or not give value to that?
Well, the garage, of course, what I would give value to it. Again, it's what the market is demanding, I would have to find a comp with another detached garage. The bathroom, are we talking like an unfinished toilet and sink in the bathroom, a pool bathroom? It depends on what type of bathroom it is. But I would have to have a comp that had a bathroom in the garage to give value to it. It would not be included in your MLS listing as four bathrooms. It would be 3 bathrooms because it's not attached to the main living area. It'd be probably more than likely pretty hard to comp that. So the value would probably be in the garage itself, not in the bathroom.
Okay. Yeah, I had that recently where it was my buyers and there were no other comps in the area, so they gave it zero value. And I was a little
Yeah.
bit upset by that just because, I mean, the bathroom, yeah, like you said, it wasn't an amazing bathroom. It was a toilet and a sink, but it was a full-on, two-car garage with the electric and all of that, and they gave it zero value. So,
I would give the garage value. I wouldn't have given the bathroom value just because it's not a common, I mean, you got to think about it from a utility standpoint. Am I going to go outside to the garage to take a bath? Probably not. So that's
right.
how the garage, absolutely. The bathroom, probably not. Probably not.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cindy.
Hey, can you delve into the 1.5 versus 2-story home? I lived in a home actually in Heritage, where you are, that was considered 1.5, but it did not, it seemed like it was a 2-story house, but the way the roofs were and everything, we did have a ton of wonderful walk-in attic space. But So I get why they called it that, but it was a very functional second floor. So how do you adjust for that, please? Thanks.
I don't. There's no adjustment for me for that. 1.5 to 2 is the same thing. If it's got a staircase leading up there, we're good. So that's mainly just a label appraisers put. I mean, I guess some may have, I don't know how you would deduct for that. I've seen people add. I've seen it both ways. I've seen people add for a second floor because you've got to think from a cost perspective. They put the stairs in to go upstairs, and the upstairs is different. But to me, that's more of a quality of the home versus a line item adjustment, if that makes sense. So to me, 1.5, 2, but it's just a name on a sheet to me. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay, thanks.
Annie.
Thank you. I was
Annie.
trying to unmute. Sorry, I'm driving. I have a couple of questions. One is there any value in having 220 electrical in a garage?
No, and the market has to dictate it. And this is where I go back to I'm not a home inspector, and that to me doesn't mean much of anything. It's not a market demand that they need that. So right now I would say no.
Okay, and then in an older home, if the electrical and plumbing were professionally redone fully, walls out, is there value in that?
That again kind of goes back to the maintenance issue of the roof and the HVAC. I expect it to have good electrical and plumbing. So we're good there. If it was deteriorating and I had proof that the electrical wasn't working or the plumbing, then yes, that would be an issue. But again, that would be something that would be disclosed. Typically, I found in MLS and with realtors, it's only disclosed if it's really bad. Like they're not, if you tell me, oh, I have brand new electrical and plumbing, and then I have a comp that it's disclosed that the plumbing and the electrical is not working, then obviously that comp is not going to be as high value as the one that I'm selling.
That makes sense. Thank you, Annie. And thank you, Katie. I'm going to pop over to the chat real quick and just
Right?
address a few of those, and then we can keep going. But JC was asking if you could talk about the lot adjustments or lot size adjustments.
That, I've gone down so many rabbit holes with lots because it definitely makes an adjustment. And again, it depends on where you are. If I have 0.2 versus 0.36, is that an adjustment? Probably not. Um, if, and then again, if I have 2.3 acres and one is straight downhill and one's flat, that may make an adjustment. Again, a lot of people like to look at tax records. Please don't, because it's straight dollar for dollar on what it is. I have really cool software now that lets me put all my comps into a database and then shows me the dollar per dollar what I should adjust for those. And then I have a lot of comparison techniques. It just depends on the area you're at for sure. Some parts of Wake County, you could have 1.5 acres and then you could have 2.2. Is there really a difference in those? Probably not, because there may be what we call as excess land that you never could build on. Or it could be I just did one for one of you guys and it was in a floodplain. It's on 2 acres, but an acre of that was in the floodplain. So what is the actual usable acreage on a home is how I look at it.
Thank you. And then going back, I believe it was when you were talking about like basements and also talking about the finished third floor. Someone had asked, are you saying an appraiser may consider unpermitted space in square footage? I think it was when you were talking about that, the AV room compared to the other house, that it wouldn't have cost too much to finish that square footage.
Are you asking if unpermitted, would I include an unpermitted area in my total square footage adjustment?
Or just in pricing, like if it has a large unfinished basement, for instance, is that something that you would consider?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do a dollar adjustment for unfinished basements. Again, it could be, as an appraiser, whereas you're looking at the whole apple, we're breaking it apart into different pieces. So when I look at a basement, you have to remember that as far as the construction, there's typically only one main side out facing the outside. So one wall of windows, one wall of brick, one wall of vinyl, whatever it may be, and the rest is cement block. So that's why the valuation for basements is lower because of the quality and the cost to build it. Also you worry about it flooding and all those things. It's just a perception. And that again goes back to how it's finished, how the quality is. Unfinished basements, especially if I have a property that had an unfinished basement and they finished it, it's pretty easy to decipher how much the market is paying for that finished basement. But to be honest with you, when you have unfinished versus finished, you think about it, it's kind of like the third floor. All you really got to do, especially if it's already got the HVAC in there, is throw up some drywall, put a ceiling on, and put carpet, and it's finished. So what's the cost difference between that versus unfinished? So it could be, I may add $40 a square foot for an unfinished, and then for the finished part, I may add $60 a square foot because that's the difference it costs. So again, I look at it as two separate adjustments when I'm doing my grid. So you'll see, I did one for Nancy yesterday. That's why I keep going back for her. She had, I think it was like 1,100 square foot, and then 900 of it was finished. So she did get value for the other 300 square foot because it could be finished. Now, is it a utility room? Is it a strip of wall that is nothing but mechanical that would never be finished? Then that's more of a utility area that you wouldn't include in the square footage, but it would still be on your MLS sheet. But as far as valuation, I look at what could be finishable in my square footage.
Got it. Thank you.
I have no clue if I answered the question.
Yeah, that is it for now. Carry on. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, so we're done with that. Now we're going to, I don't know if you've heard or if you haven't heard about the new appraisal form that's coming out. For the first time in 20 years, the GREs, the Fannies and the Freddie Macs of the world are updating the appraisal form. It's a double-edged sword. My daughter was looking at me typing a report and she's like, what is that? That's like the most archaic thing I've ever seen. And if you look at it, it truly was made for a typewriter. The way you read an appraisal sheet, you have line item, and then anything else you want to put, you have to scroll to the back and put an addendum of the report. So the update was needed. However, it's not going to be an easy switch. With technology and everything, it's gotten to be a little bit more involved than we thought. So the new UAD 3.6, currently when you get an appraisal report, it's 2.6. So now we're 3.6. And it will be mandatory for all GSEs, Fannies and Freddies starting November 2nd, which is right around the corner. I have yet to type one yet. This was launched in September of last year. Needless to say, there are a ton of hiccups in going out in it. So they're saying November 2nd. I haven't heard differently, and there are orders being sent out to appraisers. So it'll be one consolidated form replacing 12 legacy forms. So the 1004 was your standard appraisal form for single family. You had condo forms, you had drive-by forms. You think of all the COVID drive-bys we had. We had manufactured home forms. We have FHA addendums. Everything will now be on one form. And the report structure grows to 25 to 30 pages, 29 sections. So it'll be automatic, 17 fixed pages, and then 12 conditional. And this is just in the appraisal report, like what I'm actually typing up. The core shift will be, the old form was like, is there something there? You would check, and then you would go to the back, and then it would be dependent on my narrative. So a lot of times I might say, I think the home is rated a condition level 3. And in my narrative, I have to go and explain why. Well, the kitchen's good, the bathroom's good, the deck's good, the floor's okay, that type of thing. The new form is what is here correct. Verified, standardized data points. So it'll say, I'm going to go into it, but just keep that in mind before I go into it. And so the general addendum is eliminated. So the commentary now lives in context within each section of the report versus everything's catched all in the back of the report. To me, my addendums are extremely long when I send them in. They could be 4, 5, 6 pages because I'm paranoid of not putting the right thing in. So I think for me, this may be a welcome relief, but for some appraisers who have templates, cut and paste, easy to fill, they've been using this language forever. It's a big shift. We are seeing some appraisers leave the industry because of it. I don't know if you know, but there aren't a lot of female appraisers out there, and they're not, most of them are over the age of 70. So that is an issue that we're going to see with these new reports coming out, that a lot of them are just old timers and they're like, I don't want to do this. I'm done. I'm retiring. So what changes for agents and your sellers? So there's going to be separate interior and exterior condition ratings. So no more overall, I mentioned that overall condition rating, hiding a problem. So this is your deck. I have a story that I walked out on a deck. It looked perfect. The agent forgot to tell me it was rotten. I fell through the deck. I should have put the picture in here of me falling through the deck because it was deteriorated. Well, now guess what? When I do my report, it's going to say deck, and I'm going to put condition level 6, holes in the deck. It's horrible. I don't have to do an overall condition. So each thing in the home is going to be rated. Room level condition and quality detail is more granular than before. I have to measure the height of ceilings in each room. I have to measure, I have to say, does the room have molding in it? What type of flooring's in it? Just so much more detailed. Yay me, I'm gonna be there forever. Mobile first inspection style format. So the report will mirror how the appraiser walks through. So when I do my report, it'll pop up. Again, what does that mean? I'm going to be at the appraisal inspection much longer than before. It's going to take me a lot longer to go through the actual appraisal. Again, if I'm doing, 5 appraisals a week and I'm now double, triple, quadrupling my time, that's going to impact my workload on how much I can take on each week. Again, I mentioned I'm a mom. I like to be done at 3 o'clock. This is going to be impacting a lot of appraisers. That you're going to you need to expect more appraiser outreach to verify property details during and inspection. So build a little extra time into your contracts for this when they roll out. There's going to be and make sure you answer the phone. If you don't answer the phone, it's going to be an issue, because obviously MLS is not going to be matching what we need. And everything is going to be scrutinized in these reports and have to be verified. So again, I mentioned the one form, all property types, integrated addenda and photos. If I take a photo of the deck I fell through, I can immediately write down what was wrong with that deck. You don't have to go into the report. Fewer gray areas. It's all about being more transparent and seeing everything the way it is. So these are some examples of some of the templates we had. Again, they're going to all go away. This is going to be the new consolidated form. So you'll click what type it is. Is it a desktop? Is it traditional? Is it hybrid? And from there, it automatically builds on to the report. So it's, we are a technology society. I do understand the need to update it, but it's going to be just much more detailed. New data points. Let's talk about, I mentioned the roof. So not only the roof type, but is it less than 1 year? Is it 1 to 10? Is it 10 to 20? Is it more than 20? So this, I always read disclosures, keep doing it, put in there the roof. That's where I'm typically going to get that in your seller's disclosures in there. Your wall and ceiling, this is where we talked about the 5-foot knee wall. So if there's a portion that's less than 7 feet, I need to put the flooring. I need to put the overall update status for the flooring. When was it updated? What year? Just so much more details, which is going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. And you'll see too, it also for like the window details, the window, the crawl space, the exterior walls, all of this, I'm going to have to document in my report. Where some of it, and to be fair, could be just common sense. Well, yeah, the home's 10 years old. Of course, the crawl space is the same crawl space. But now I have to say, yes, it's the same crawl space that's been there from the beginning. This is the bathroom. This is going to be so much fun. So if I have each bathroom, I have to comment on and I always take a photo, but now I'm going to have to say, oh, was it fully? Was it significantly? Was it moderate? And the quality and the time frame and the condition. And then it also, I have, I don't know, it's hiding it. It goes on to say the notes about it. So what were the updates? What was specifically done? So these are the questions that if I can't verify it easily in MLS, I'm going to have to make some phone calls to figure it out. So, I mean, specific to the years that it was done. Again, this is another example of the flooring where you have to put the walls and ceiling, are they 9 foot? Are they 7 foot? Are they the flooring engineered wood? All this information that's what's going to be required to get the overall up top. You'll see the quality and condition to find that. Whereas typically I would just put it's Q4, it's C4, let's move on, call it a day, done. I know y'all love this. So appraisers are doing away with gross living area. We will be doing a new type of square footage. So we're going to have finished above grade and finished above grade non-standard, unfinished above grade, finished below grade, finished below grade non-standard. If y'all have ever looked at a appraisal report, especially when I do measurements, this is a common question. It'll say living area and non-living area. And the non-living area appraisal reports automatically put finished basement behind there, so it won't be included in the gross living area. So this does kind of make sense. There's just going to be some new caveats that we have to clarify while we're doing it. Standard or non-standard. The one on the left, this is a sunroom. It is living space. It is heated and cooled. You can see the wall unit in there. But this would now be considered non-standard finished living space because of the exterior wall and the ceiling. The basement, you see the drop ceiling in there. It is heated and cooled, but because it's not up to, and cement walls, because it's not up to the standard of a normal finished living space, it can be counted as finished living space, but it'll be non-standard. So when I go into my reports now, I'll have to separate. I kind of do that anyway, but it's just a different line to put it in. Where it used to, I just put sunroom and do it. Well, now it is a living space, but it's just not up to the standards that it should be. So that's one of the things we'll have to make a difference on. And again, this is where it would go in. So you would have to put it all in there. It's just a little bit more work on my end. This is the issue. You'll see at the bottom. So when it talks about where I verified my measurement, this is where it comes from. So it'll say on there real estate agent. So your name is now in the report. I have to put it in the report. So if the measurement is not verified correctly, your name is now in the report saying it was not. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. So just a heads up that you will find your name now in an appraisal report. Because these are the measurements that you've relayed. And obviously I'm finishing it as well, but if there's an issue, I put your measurements in and my measurements in, and it's documented in the report. So just be careful. And that's all the fun I have about this new report that's launching. I know you're so excited. The good news is my private reports, all that I can keep doing the way I've been doing, which is good. And I may end up changing it, but that's how it's going to go down the road. So that's the big change in the industry right now that I hope you've heard about. I think nobody wants to talk about it because it's just going to be, I really do think it's going to be a nightmare. Lenders are already concerned about lag times and appraisals. So don't just be wary. There could be a chance. I think there'll be more appraisal waivers. I think that's going to happen. But I also think that appraisals may take longer to get done just because of the time. I mean, I'm hearing I have yet to do one, but I'm hearing it takes almost double the amount of time to type a report, which also means appraisal fees are going to go up. A note about that. I know some of y'all work some really good lenders, and I'm on the panel with them. Be wary of AMCs. Some AMCs, they may say, oh, we're charging $1,000 for the appraisal. Go back and ask them what the appraisal is actually getting. Are they getting 350? Are they getting 400 and the AMC's collecting the fee? A lot of these can be big house appraisal companies who I hope not, but you may have had an appraisal done, and the appraiser, you look them up and they're from Wilmington coming into Raleigh and they're knocking out 7 or 8 appraisals in one day. And that can happen with AMCs as well. So as the saying goes, you get what you pay for. So just, talk to your lenders, make sure you trust them and who they're using as appraisers, because you can't vet your appraisers. Can't pick your appraiser, but you can pick the quality of work that you're having. That's it. Thanks. I love my Google reviews. I'm 3 away from 100. Like, I think like, that's my pride and joy. I don't ask for them often, but if you found what I said beneficial, that's the best way you can help me with my business. To place orders, to learn more, just go to my website. You can scan the QR code or go to KB Appraisal. But that is all I have for you today, unless there's some more questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. Do you have time for more questions? I think we have just a few.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Real quick, before I jump to some of them, I wanted to touch on what you just said, the AMCs. I know we as agents understand that we can't pick our appraisers, but what did you mean by that in asking our lender partners who they're using? Because how would we have any role on whether they are bringing someone in from Wilmington? Like, does that mean we would just use a different lender, or how would we combat a situation like that? Is it being really proactive or is it reactive? Will you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, sure. So, appraisers, mortgage companies can have appraisers on their appraisal panel. I'm on, I think, 3 or 4. Some I fired recently. It just wasn't worth the headache. And they are vetted appraisers. They are appraisers who they have vetted, they trust, they know the area, and they're on their panel and they do circulate from them. The AMCs, I get bids all the time for appraisal, and the lowest bid wins. It could be, I think I had one last week, a $1.5 million home, and the starting fee was $350, 2-day turn down. Well, Katie Brown's not bidding on that. Like, that's just not worth it. But if it's a guy in Wilmington or a girl in Wilmington, and they can take that and do 10 and come home and they have a shop that just knocks them out, that's where they're coming from. And that's when you'll see the quality of work on the appraisals, or maybe one that doesn't understand the area or understand the market as well as somebody else. So you can always ask your lenders, do you have a lender panel? I know Guild Mortgage does. There's some other ones in the area that have preferred lender panels and preferred appraisal panels, and that's how that works. So you're basically vetted by that appraisal company, and they know you're from the area and they know your work. And if you don't do a good job and up to standards, then you're out. So that's how, it's not the lowest fee wins. That's how it works.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to jump to Alex and then I'll go over to the chat real quick.
Katie, real quick, general question. I think I know the answer, but what's your opinion personally, and what do you think the larger appraiser industry opinion is on listing agents calling you before the appraisal and giving you all kinds of their opinions and insight and everything else?
I always tell people, give me all the information you want. Just give it to me. But then as soon as I turn that report in, no, I can't talk to you anymore. And that's the issue I run into. It's so funny sometimes. I just finished a situation, new home construction, where it's just not, it is what it is. Like, I say that we all know how the townhouses are doing in this market. If you don't, go take a look, they're hit or miss. And I called the buyer's agent, didn't get a response, called the listing agent, didn't get a response. Well, they didn't respond to me for a reason, because they knew that they didn't have any value. But I always say, for me personally, you can give me all the information you want. That way we're on the same page. I also have no problem if you give me comps and I'm like, listen, Alex, I love these. I appreciate these comps, but let me tell you why I can't use this comp. I think it's a good learning situation for us both. So that way there's no scary, when the report comes in, you kind of know what's going to happen. So I welcome information. I know that's not the standard. There are a lot of appraisers who don't want your information, who don't want any information, but me personally, I enjoy as much information as possible.
And can you use off-market properties that sold?
No, it has to be in the MLS. Yeah, that's an issue. So I run into that a lot, especially with new construction. They'll have stuff that, or totally off market. The house next door sold to Lisa down the street, and I can't use it because it's not an arm's length sale. I can't verify. So yeah, it has to be verified. That's the main thing. Just like the new construction that had, the agent swore that the other homes that sold had updated kitchens. So didn't have updated kitchens. Like, send me photos. Never got the photos. So it has to be able to be verified.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good. That was one of the questions I had, is can we print off comps and leave them on the kitchen counter? Because often
Yes.
we won't know who our appraiser is in advance. So
Yes, you can. And I reach out to most of mine. And if I'm reaching out, there's probably a reason why I'm reaching out too. If you don't hear from me, we're probably good to go. But if I'm reaching out, there's probably an issue with that appraisal, and we need to chat about it. So I need to see where you're coming from. So please answer the phone from the appraiser. They definitely have your best interest in heart when they're reaching out. Be scared if they don't sometimes. Like if you know that this is touch or go, and if it's the values right, sometimes it's better to just be proactive and leave the list. They may use it or may not, but I always recommend it.
Wonderful, thank you. Popping over to the chat for a second. Cindy had to hop off, but I do think it would be great for the recording. She was asking about the difference in ceiling heights and how that affects the appraisal.
Sure. So 5 foot is the rule. That's the golden rule. So when you go in most bonus rooms and they have the dormers, I'm going to cut out. I'm going to take my laser, I'm going to put it on the ground. I'm going to have it shoot up. And when it hits 5 feet, that what counts. I lay my laser this way, and that is what I take away. So it could be a foot, it could be 0.8 inches, and I'm going to deduct it. So the ceiling height does matter. Also the room, if it's, I think it's more than 50% below 5 feet, it doesn't count as a room. So we're talking about these rooms that have the little ceiling right here and then they drop down. That's going to be more of a storage room and not counting your square footage.
Got it. Thank you. Nadine was asking about non-standard living square footage based on that new form that you were talking about. I'm assuming that that means it's valued at less.
Yeah, so in my opinion, it's kind of how I do it now. I'll put a line item would be like sunroom, and I give it a different valuation than say a screen porch. So it's just how when you read the appraisal report now, is how it's going to be read. So just like on your MLS, you'll put what it isn't like a other living square feet or other something of that sort where you put other living area, and that's where the sunroom goes. It just can't count in your main square footage. So it's just going to be more for you guys for a reading standpoint on how you read the report, versus how you're used to being read. It would go to the bottom and it would say screen porch. This is what it says. So it's going to be more of a page by page reading versus a 1-page snapshot of the property.
And then how much would you mind sharing how much your appraisals are currently, and then how much do you foresee them going up based on new practices?
So I've been very fortunate that I do a ton of private work. And with that being said, my prices won't go up for that because I'm still using my same form and all that. So for my divorce work, my pre-list work, and going back to the pre-list appraisals, I should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about my services. I highly recommend, with the volatility of pricing in the market as it is now, that you as an agent do not pay for that appraisal. You ask your homeowner, if they're giving you pushback on what that price is, you say, let's get a third party in here. You pay for the appraisal. Guess what? Bonus to you, you're getting your floor plan and measurement included for free. I mean, I guess you could offer to reimburse them $150 on the appraisal if you wanted to, but I recommend you get them to pay for it. And then at closing, you'll reimburse them for the appraisal, because what I'm seeing now is I've seen agents pay for a pre-list appraisal. They get it. They're like, well, I'm out. I can't sell my house now. And then you're left holding the bill. Again, that's why I stepped up and got away from the market. The market valuation is good because you could leave those comps on the counter. Like these are the comps the appraisers will use, make sure they knew them. But for a pricing standpoint, I don't think it's fair for agents to foot the bill for a full appraisal when there's a really good chance the sellers are like, well, forget it. I'm not doing it then. And then they own the appraisal. They communicate with me, and you're just the nice person that recommended it, and you stay out of it. There have been some pre-lists recently that I have turned down. One had been on the market, started at $950, went to $750. I looked at it and I saw it was $650, and I said, no, I'm not touching it. And because recently I did touch one, and this is not your agency, by the way, but the agent was on the email, and the guy was extremely derogatory, accusatory, because he didn't like the price. So guess what? Like I'm starting to kind of vet my agents too on these pre-lists to make sure I'm not going to be put in a bad situation where I get turned into the board because they don't like my number. So I realize the pre-list part can be very scary. Also, if you have a client that's doing an estate or they're going through a divorce and you know they're going to sell, just let me know or let them know that you're going to be the agent, and I'll make sure I get your measurements and floor plan too, and then it's included with the report, and that's a little bit of savings you have as well. So that's my opinion on that. But those prices will stay the same because I'm using the same forms for those. It's just now as far as the lender work, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what my fees are going to do. Most lenders, it can be anywhere from $550 to $600. I see at least a $200 increase. I've seen some appraisers say as much as $1,000. Does that mean the AMCs are going to have to, shorten their pot a little bit? Instead of getting a $600 profit, they may only get a $200 profit for those that we talked about. I don't know how that's going to all shake out when it's all said and done.
Understandably. I have a quick question about ADUs. I know, like you mentioned, a lot of things are dependent on market value and whether it is needed by the people shopping. I do think, in my opinion, the ADUs are becoming more popular, and especially with multi-generation housing. I'm wondering what your take is on that. Obviously, that's like building a whole house in terms of cost, and we don't always get dollar for dollar. Could you speak to how often you're seeing those and what your adjustments are for those typically?
Yeah, they're definitely difficult. And like anything in the appraisal world, I have to have market supported evidence. So obviously it's not your main living structure. I would have to find a comp that has that structure to figure out the value. The good thing is with the new appraisal form, all those will be included. So there is a spot for me to break down the quality and all that, which I think is nice. Otherwise, it was there was no place on the report for me to really break down the square footage. It had to be a line item. It would be like 700 square foot ADU. Well, that's a whole lot. That's like a little word for what it really is. I think the new form will be better for that. But again, it's just going to be trying to find a market comparison that has that. They're hard. I don't like doing them, but I do them. There's certain areas that have them more. I may say no. Like I can't figure it out. So that's something too. I also like to say sometimes with these additions, price it the highest you can, the highest the neighborhood sold, and see what the market's willing to pay more for. So if you know the most expensive home that was totally tricked out sold for 900, and you've got this ADU, price it for 900 and see what the market's willing to pay for. That's another way to test the market too, because they're going to pay more than 900. And if people see 900, then that's when you get into this bidding war. So just because I can't come up with a value doesn't mean that the market won't demand more. So that's another tactic I use. Don't be scared of my number. I always encourage, okay, we're getting this, but who's to say you can't go higher? Just don't stay there too long, drop back down. So that's my theory on that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. We've got two more questions. I want to be mindful of time, so we'll get to both of you and then we'll wrap it up. Nancy, what question do you have?
Okay. Hi, Katie. From a listing agent perspective, I had a listing once in an Apex neighborhood, and the sellers had fostered dogs. So the condition of the home was really quite lower than a lot of the other neighborhood homes. So when I closed out that listing, I went ahead and put in the agent remarks that condition was impacting the sales price that we got. And then I put my name, like, please reach out if you have any questions. So how helpful is information like that to you as an appraiser looking at comps and maybe seeing an anomaly comp out there in the neighborhood?
That's, excellent. It does encourage me to reach out. And there's also a chance I may throw that comp out. Like if it's way below, but if it's the only comp in the neighborhood, then I'll have to call. But if I have 6 closed sales in the neighborhood and they all closed at 400 and yours at 325, well, something's wrong with that comp and it's going away. But I will likely call to verify. So when the lender comes back or the underwriter and says, why didn't you use this comp? It closed 2 days before. I can explain why, because they will ask that. So yeah, just again, answer the phone, put it in the notes. The more info, the better.
But it is helpful to put that in the agent remarks,
Yeah.
like when we go to
I
close out.
love it.
Okay.
It's one less phone call I have to make. So yes,
Cool.
I appreciate it.
Really wrap us up. What's yours?
Oh, here you go. I got it. So my question was about the ADUs. I might have a listing coming up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I do have a listing coming up. It's an older house. It's a really nice neighborhood. It's like 49 square feet home. They did not do any updates for sure. And then it's going to be an estate also. The question is, there's a full basement. And they do have the kitchen in the basement. In order for that kitchen or in order for that space to be counted as an ADU, do they have to have a yes, fridge, maybe? Do they have to have a oven or range oven kind of?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say I'm not really sure because again, an ADU is treated like a separate beast. So it's a separate entity.
I mean,
So
I'm sorry, I cut you off. I did have another buyer couple of years ago, and then they had a fully basement. They had a kitchen at the basement, and then the house, we were having a hard time appraising the house because none of the other homes has it. And then the appraiser thought that it's then he counted as an ADU, even though
in the
there's
it was
in the
in the main.
basement. Yes,
I
in the main house in the basement. That's why I'm a little bit scared of if
don't put the
when we
oven
put
in
it on
there.
last day, I'm not going to. I'm
Yeah.
definitely not going to do it. And then they did not do that either when I was on the buyer side too. But this house has a similar situation. There's a door outside that you can go outside through the basement. You don't have to go upstairs to go outside. It's definitely, of course, there's a door in between, as if with the other house too. And then there's a kitchen area. They put microwave. There's no range. But there's like sink and all other stuff. So
Then
that's
in my
why, I mean, I'm not going to count it as an ADU for sure. I'm not going to list it when I list it. I'm not going to do that, but I'm a little bit hesitant when we put it on market and if another appraisal comes for the buyers saying that, oh, this actually count, even if it's not a true ADU, but it's kind of count as an ADU, that
if it's
situation.
if you can access it through the main house and it's on the main house, I'm gonna call it a kitchenette, wet bar, that type of
Gotcha.
thing. That's what I'm doing. I'm not worried about that. So if it was a separate building, that's when I worry. If it's in the main house and
It
it
is in the
doesn't have
main
a,
house.
yeah, then I would just call it a kitchenette
Okay.
or a wet
Yeah.
bar, whichever you like.
I mean, it does have a little, I guess kitchenette will be the best because there's no bar, but there's actual
Yeah,
kitchen in there.
yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming today. Katie, thank you so much for your time and for answering all of our questions. It means the world to us to have you in our corner always, but especially for this. I know there's so much nuance that goes into it. So thank you for breaking down as much of it as possible. You guys, if you could leave her a Google review, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. Getting speakers in here is really important to us, and we want to make sure it feels reciprocal. If you have any other questions, anything we missed, or you would like to hire Katie for a pre-listing numbers run, anything, feel free to reach out. This will be included in the recording, and I will get it your way as soon as we've got it. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.